Commissioner Sankey's rebuttal to Commissioner Schultz's requests.
Expansion, realignment, and the CFP are always in the news, so we're back on the big mountain to keep you updated.
Hey, it's really good to have you here on the mountain. If you're new to the channel, we welcome you. If you're a subscriber, we absolutely welcome you. Love all of our subscribers and viewers. We want to do a brief episode, Steve, on some comments that Commissioner Sankey has made. He made a few comments about the PAC and kind of what has gone on and Schultz's proposal. I want to talk about those first. Then I want to talk about his comments as to the Big Ten and their, kind of aligning, their advisory group, as he's calling it, and kind of what he's thinking about college football right now. This is coming out of an interview that Greg Sankey had with John Casano, the Bald-Faced Truth. He has really good interviews. We love using, information direct from sources. You don't get any direct from a source than a commissioner, and that's Greg Sankey in this regard. So let's get into some of the questions. We're not going to go through the whole thing. We're going to focus it, as I said, on the PAC because we follow them. We just did an update, an episode on where Commissioner Schultz is looking to propose to the CFP here, actually tomorrow on the 20th. So I'm going to talk about two questions that were asked to him, then we can have a little bit of discussion, Steve. First was, Canzano asked, was the fall of the PAC and the market consolidation inevitable? And I think moving forward, people think it's going to continue to go, and it's inevitable that's going to continue. He's doing a little bit of a hindsight. Was the PAC fall and the consolidation we've had thus far inevitable? Sankey responded that he stated he never thought this type of consolidation was inevitable. There were opportunities along the way to avoid what happened, specifically to the PAC, but he respects the decisions that were made. He commented that, speaking to it now is Monday morning quarterbacking, and he was careful not to do that. But in his mind that, he thought there were some opportunities for the decision makers years ago to not get to where we're at. That's his opinion, outsiders of a PAC's opinion. The next one was specific to Kirk Schultz. He's making a lot of waves, as we've discussed, with the CFP committee. So the question was, Kirk Schultz proposing the PAC be treated as a Power 5 for the college football playoff. And what are his thoughts on this? His response was, for years, they've been trying to deal with format expansion. This was not an expansion that the SEC requested or even advocated to pursue. However, they worked as a good partner. Interesting that he brings that up, a good partner right now. I don't think our friend Kirk Schultz is being viewed by many as a good partner, but be that as it may, he goes on to talk about the reality is that we have a postseason system that adapts. He is not a fan of continuing requests from different corners for special accommodations. Right now, it is at the board level. It is not at the commissioner's level. At some point, we're going to have to adapt for the next 2 years. Then we're going to have to rethink the approach on how they govern, how governance is conducted, and how decisions are made if this is going to work. So I kind of mentioned that. Let's break into some of our discussion here. I kind of mentioned that with the Schultz proposal, and we had a question from a commenter. What do you think he's doing? Do they have advantages now or later? And I said in the short term, he has the advantage. In the long term, maybe not so much. And even Sankey here saying, we got to figure out the next 2 years, which is their, current agreement. And then after that, we're going to have to readjust yet again. So whatever they do for the PAC moving forward for the next 2 years will be one potential adjustment and then another adjustment just a few years down the road. So any comments on what Sankey's saying there, Steve?
Well, first of all, Sankey is arguably the most powerful voice in college football. He's the commissioner of one of the top two conferences. And I believe he's been the commissioner of the SEC for as long as the two Big Ten commissioners. So he's got.
I think he's the most tenured.
Exactly.
Of all the commissioners right now. So certainly has that going for him.
Exactly. And a lot of the things over the years he talks about not being the SEC wasn't pushing for expansion of the playoffs. Well, a big reason they weren't is because they won the playoff almost every single year.
So they were getting what they wanted, right?
Exactly. So I think you have to kind of take Sankey in two ways, in my opinion. One, he is very intelligent, very smart. I think if we were to hire, let's say, a commissioner of college football, he probably would be the guy. But as of right now, he's still the commissioner of the SEC. It's his job to advocate for the best possible scenarios for the SEC. So I think you have to take kind of both of those options in mind, or both of those kind of tracks. He kind of wears two hats. He's looking at college football as a whole, but he also has to focus on the SEC. I think he makes a lot of great points, and I think specifically, here's the thing: is the Schultz can be looked at as a good partner or a bad partner depending on where you stand on the power distribution. Okay, the SEC and the Big Ten, they're at the very top. They have the most money, the best teams, all of that. And if you're looking at the G5 partners as they're constructed within the college football playoff, Schultz which they're given. The way it's set up, they're kind of given an equal footing as far as voting and all of that. He's probably looked at as a good partner to them, and maybe even if the ACC and the Big 12, if they think about it long term, they might even consider, because they could kind of be pushed out to where they're not getting automatic bids, depending on the ACC loses Florida State, a couple of their powers. So I think Sankey makes some great points. I'm not going to disagree with any of his points. I would just say, he's the commissioner of the SEC. Now, where I think there is a risk is, if these big two, if these power two that we've talked about, and everyone's finally on board and talking about the power two now, I definitely think the long-term risk is those two could take their ball and go and create their own game.
Yeah.
I still don't see a lot of risk for Schultz as far as from everybody else. I think that it's kind of a mixed bag, and he's advocating for the PAC, but there definitely is that risk that the Big Ten and the SEC could just say, you know what, screw it. It's not worth the headaches of dealing with these people and their requests, so we're just going to go and do our own playoff. That's certainly a risk, and I think that's kind of what he's signaling here.
Yeah.
I think he does everything intentionally when he talks about the expansion and all of that. He does everything intentionally, and I think this is his way of signaling, like, hey, dude, if you don't want to play ball with us, we will go and do our own thing, and we frankly don't need you.
Yeah. Well, that was the next question.
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit, not exactly, but close to it. So the next question came up on forming this advisory group with the Big Ten. Steve, that's something that you actually heard rumorings through your interactions with people at Penn State.
Yep.
You actually heard that was going to happen right before it even hit the press. Yep. So the Big Mountain, and we talked, is it something we wanted to bring up, as a breaking news type of thing, which is not typically what we do. And you said, let's hold off. And I agree with you. I think it was smart that we held off because, I'm going to get into what he says here, and it's whether or not you believe him or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll preface this. You either believe him or you don't. But I want to get into this advisory group. So his response to this is, big problems are not solved in big rooms filled with lots of people. When you have to have a narrow focus in order to move forward. They did have advance notice to their colleagues they did give advance notice to their colleagues prior to going public. So I think that's where, and you're not the only one. I saw that we saw a little bit of that kind of bubbling up through different sources that, hey, there's rumoring something's going to happen, and it was an even bigger something than what actually was announced.
Right.
But which is, again, a good reason why we held off a little bit on that. Yeah. But moving forward, he says, it is a focused decision on some immediate issues. This helps to motivate themselves and motivate others to seek a solution and to collaborate. He feels that both leagues feel the responsibility of leadership at this time, and he points out that this is not an alliance. It is simply an opportunity for a group of leaders to talk about a path forward. So certainly tamping down some of those very early concerns of, they're going to announce a breakaway. They're announcing this is it. Now, again, these are his words. You can believe him at face value. You can read between the lines. You can be like, wow, he's full of BS right now. They're going to break away. I'm telling you what he said in this article. Let me go to one more question, then I'll throw it to you, Steve. He then goes on then the next question is on whether college football should break away from other sports, not just a P2 model. But we've seen a lot of this discussion. Should college football just break away? His answer is, it is more complex than just this one simple one-line interview question. Much more complex than that. He notes, that they have maintained in the SEC, they have maintained regionality. And to him, that's important. We heard that a lot with the PAC. He mentions all the draft picks, and he goes on to list all the great things about the SEC. He's a cheerleader for the SEC, as you mentioned. So he goes on to mention the draft picks that they've had, sports champions that they've had in other sports, Olympic sports and things like that. And he finds it hard to say to them, to these other athletes outside of football, it's hard to say to them they can only have a fraction of what the college football athletes are getting. That's just his opinion. He actually called himself old school at one time. He looks at this holistically. The football program is a part of the university. It is a part of the athletic programming, and they should remain connected as programs for the university and not be breakout sports. This coming from Sankey, I thought that was great to hear. I don't know if it's true. Do you believe him? Do you not? And he mentioned him being old school, and I get it. And is the path forward not what he's saying here? It may be, but he's one of the most influential leaders, whether you like him or not. He's been around a while. As he said in the previous one, they view that they need to take on a leadership role right now, and that's clearly what they're doing. I think the question that remains to be seen is how much of a bully leadership are they going to be? Yeah, we'll find out, I guess, soon enough. So what are you thinking on some of that?
So I want to go back and just kind of take our viewers back to what you first talked about there, which was the when we started to hear the rumblings of the potential Power-2 breakaway. Yep. So about 24 hours or so before everything hit the news, I texted you and I said, "Hey, I got a message from one of my contacts at Penn State, and they've been told that all Big Ten and SEC athletic departments are going to start preparing for a possible breakaway from the NCAA. Could be as early as this coming summer." So, what I took from that at the time was, hey, this is we didn't have all the details yet. It's hey, they're going to start getting prepared. What would this look like? Which I think was a good thing to kind of send that message out. But then, as you said, once the real reports hit the news media, it was not quite that level.
Right.
Okay. Now, what I will say is, again, I said Sankey, he does everything intentionally. Every word that comes out of his mouth is very intentional. Same thing with the other commissioners, but I think Sankey has it down.
Yeah.
For me, when they're saying they're gonna start this exploratory committee or advisory committee. Yep. This is them signaling to everybody else, we are the Power-2. We have the power. We can break away if we want to do this, and we can do our own thing. We would like the rest of you to kind of come on board and participate in the discussion to see if we can do something all together.
Right.
But if we want to do this, we can do this.
Yes.
So that's, to me, that's how I take that.
A little bit of a threat.
Yeah, a little bit of an implied threat, definitely. Right. So, like, they're trying to show, hey, we want to do this in a collaborative manner, but at the same time, they've got that implied threat there, which, again, is smart. It's a power move. It really is. Yep. So, the other topic, the other point, as far as, Sankey being a little old school. So, I want to talk about, his views on the potential of breaking away football or just the revenue sports from the other power sports or from the other sports. So, first of all, I'll talk about the SEC. Since Sankey has been the commissioner, they have invested hugely in women's sports, specifically women's basketball. Some schools, women's basketball is a slight revenue sport. Some they make money, some they don't. They're not quite at the level of men's basketball and football nationally. But the SEC has really invested major money and resources into those women's basketball programs and a lot of the other women's sports, gymnastics and swimming and all of that. So,
golf is huge now for women.
Absolutely. So I give the SEC a lot of credit for that, and I think the proof is in the pudding. I take him at his word that he values those other sports and that it's important to the SEC to have that as a whole package, not just one thing or the other. And I'll take Alabama as an example. Alabama, this run they went on with Saban, they used that money and the money that rolled in and the attention and the influence and everything that their football program created to invest widely in the school and to increase their women's sports programs, non-revenue sports programs. So I take him at his word for that. With that, now we'll see. Money talks, and we'll see how it goes. Big Ten, I want to say, every Big Ten program supports around 25 or more sports programs. Generally, all of those are paid for by the revenue from college football.
Okay.
Some Big Ten programs, the basketball program might be a revenue generator, maybe a little bit from the women's basketball, maybe a little bit from wrestling, whatever. But generally, the Big Ten every program supports over at least 25 other programs. So the proof is in the pudding for them too. They support a lot of programs. I can't see the SEC or the Big Ten wanting to pull back from that. But how would they pay for that if they separate football? So. Right. I'm going to take the wait and see approach as far as separating football. I think there's so much goodwill investment of having a powerful, very profitable football program helps the university, which helps these other sports, which helps them bring in their enrollments, and just the goodwill of the community and people that want to come to that school. They want to apply for admission. They want to make donations to the school. I think, to me, I look at it as I think you said maybe holistic, that Sankey might have used those words, he looks at it in a holistic manner. Right. It's all one thing. It's one giant organism to me. So I'm going to take him at his word on that I think the two power conferences would like to stay old school in the fact that they want to keep those programs tied to the football program if they can make it make sense.
Yes, he used the word holistically, and I agree. I think you listen to the commissioners, you listen to the presidents, that's what they're going to be saying, and actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
Their actions are backing that up.
Absolutely.
For now.
Yeah,
can it change? It can change. But there's nothing that leads me to believe his answer here isn't truly the way the powers of these entities aren't truly viewing this right now. And again, it can change, but look at their actions, look at their words. They match up.
Someone a long time ago told me a really profound statement. Your priorities are where you spend your money. Well, these schools have a long history of spending money on Olympic sports, non-revenue sports, women's sports programs, both of these conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. So the proof's in the pudding to me.
Well, and one quick comment back to the advisory group. And I'm going to repeat what he said here because it's what you're saying. This helps, and again, he's using his words carefully. And I think it is an implied threat. I think a lot of people are calling the threat out much more than the implications that they're using. But what he said was, this helps to motivate themselves, not the SEC and the Big Ten, everyone else. This helps to motivate them and seek a solution and to collaborate.
Yes.
That's your answer right there.
Get on board or get left behind.
Absolutely.
I want to make one more point, and I can't remember if this was from your first point or one of these other questions, with the inevitability of the PAC, okay?
Yes.
And the inevitability of the consolidation. To me, I'm going to disagree with Sankey a little bit there. I strongly believe that this has been inevitable for a long time. I've been on that train, the Big Ten and the SEC. It's just about money. Money creates big gravity wells, and this didn't just happen a year ago or 2 years ago. The Big Ten and SEC, we're talking 15, 20 years have been on this where they're consolidating resources, money, schools, value, properties, all of that. This didn't just start overnight.
Right.
It didn't just start in 2019, 2020, 2021. This has been going on for the better part of 2 decades, and I do think it was inevitable. Now, could the PAC have survived a little bit longer? Could they have done something like the Big 12 did? Absolutely, they could have. I mean, there were bad decisions, but inevitably, there's 2 large, giant gravity wells, and it's the Big Ten and it's the SEC, and it's all about money. And I do think that consolidation has been inevitable.
Yeah.
It just, who gets picked up along the way, who gets left behind, and what's the rest of the sport gonna look like? Are we still gonna have a great, healthy community of other sports or other conferences as well? I think so. I'm very positive about that, but I do think the consolidation to the Big Ten and the SEC was inevitable.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that back up because I actually found that the most surprising comment that he made. I appreciated his other comments, but he literally said he never thought this type of consolidation was inevitable. That really surprised me when that was. Now, I don't know how far back he's going. I mean, the question was about the PAC, so that was only a year ago. Maybe he's meaning 10 years ago he never thought it was inevitable. I don't know what he means, but I found that answer to be really it was a little shocking, actually.
I take that as he doesn't want to take responsibility he doesn't want the SEC to be looked at as responsible for what a lot of people are talking about, the collapse of college football. Which
Right.
I don't think there is a collapse. We've had higher ratings, higher interest than ever before. But the SEC pulling before 10 years ago or whatever was Texas A&M. Now it's Texas and Oklahoma. I think he's basically just saying that to defend the SEC. That's just.
I'd blame the Big Ten.
Yeah, well, there you go.
They're the ones going out west.
Yeah, and the Big Ten started this in 1990 with Penn State.
Yeah.
Bringing Penn State in. That was a huge changer. I mean, they were a local, regional, Midwestern conference, and they started with bringing in Penn State, which was the beast of the East at the time.
Right.
So this has been going on a long time.
Good point. Yeah, I had to make a jab at the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, just as a reminder, Schultz is supposed to be presenting to the CFP tomorrow on Tuesday. We're going to stay on top of that. I don't know if we'll get any news reports immediately after that. He did say, I'll put a link to the episode up here. He did say that he was expecting a decision to be made that day. Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll hear something tomorrow afternoon. I don't know. Look for us to, if there is something, we'll do an episode on that probably towards the end of the week. The other thing I just want to mention, we are going to drop our reaction video to the ACC motion to dismiss or to stay tomorrow on Tuesday. That's going to be a little beefier than this one, so we're going to take a little bit more time. We'll get that out on Tuesday, but things are happening here on the Big Mountain. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel. We stay on top of all this good stuff. We'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.
Sankey says, get on the bus or get left behind.